Welcome back. This week we're talking about perspective and how your perspective really connects you to five-dimensional reality. When we have a chosen perspective and we are attached to it, it can inhibit us from getting and achieving what we really want in life. Now, I think we say that a lot. And we're here to play this game. We're here to play this game of life and live it and achieve and, create goals and execute on those goals and get what we want. So we want to have as many tools as possible, and perspective and your ability to choose your most powerful perspective really, really can impact how you operate in the world and how you achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. So I want to start by saying a little bit about perspective. What is it? It is how we view the world, how you view the world, how you choose to see what's going on outside of you based on what's going on inside of you. And it really is a choice. There was a time about, 20 years ago maybe, where I didn't realize that I could choose a perspective. I thought things were going on outside of me and I had no choice. I was sort of a victim or just in reaction to whatever was happening. It makes me kind of chuckle now to look back and see I was just sort of riding the river, this tumultuous river of life and, following the current and sometimes getting washed away on shore or against rocks or whatever hazards happened to be in the river. And sometimes it was fun and sometimes it was exhilarating. And other times it was really, really challenging. When I first got introduced to perspectives, I remember exactly where I was standing, what the building looked like, who was around me. I remember being challenged that the particular situation I was struggling with wasn't the only way to see it, or the way I was seeing this challenging situation wasn't the only way to see it. And I was sort of, scratching my head, like, what do you mean here? And I was really invited to, both physically and mentally step into another perspective. I was invited to explore and create and just sort of pretend like, what if this situation were different? What would be another perspective? How could you see this differently? And I actually took a step forward. And if you're watching along at home and it's possible, I'd love for you to take a step forward or even take a step back on a particularly challenging situation that you're struggling with. And just take a deep breath with wherever you're at and ask yourself, what would it be like to look at this from a different perspective? Maybe you pretend like you put on a different pair of shades, or a different pair of glasses. Is this perspective, you can name it, is this perspective the happy perspective? What if you looked at this perspective, this challenging situation, and you called it the happy perspective or the blissful perspective? Like, what if you were all blissed out and you were looking at this situation? How would you feel? What would it look like? How would you experience it? Now, I was invited to do this multiple different times, 5, 6, 7 times, until what really landed for me was that there are endless, countless perspectives with which I can view any situation, not just challenging situations. All it takes is choosing and sometimes inviting myself to play and explore. How else could I be with whatever is going on? What else could be true? And it can be fun to do this, and it can be challenging to do this. But what I found was that once I explored these different perspectives and I was able to choose, and that's what I want to invite you to do, is choose one of them. I could just play with that perspective. I didn't have to do anything with it, but I could just play with it for, a week, a month, a year, whatever it takes. I could just be in that perspective. And the next day or the next week, I could choose a different one. I don't have to be attached to my perspective. And this is freedom. Because how I choose inside, how I be inside, is how I see the world. And how I see the world is how I experience my reality. And How I experience my reality is what I create more of, right? Because what I focus on is what I create more of. We all know that. Even if we're not talking about the quantum field or 5D reality, what we focus on is what we create more of. It's like we pivot toward a door, and whichever door we pivot toward, it opens wider, metaphorically. What happened for me back all those years ago was something opened up. Everything opened up. Every experience I had, I became more aware. I was conscious of what I was choosing, and that the perspective I was choosing was contingent on what came back to me, on what my reality was. And how that played out in my life is it created more abundance. And I'm sort of chuckling because everything shifted, right? Things that seemed, like there were horrible situations before, I was able to shift into either this blissful state that we talked about earlier, and just really be able to be with it. And I'm not saying that there aren't horrible things that are happening in the world or that are happening, at that time in my life. Maybe not horrible, but things that were happening that I didn't like. And that's okay. I didn't have to let go of the not liking it, but I could choose what perspective, what glasses what I wore when I looked at it. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. The challenge for you this week, because I know you're going to love this, and it's going to take you one step further toward 5-dimensional reality. Perspective, choices in perspective. So I'm going to challenge you to play with this. Find a challenging situation or situations in your life, something that's going on that feels out of your control. And I want you to play with this. I want you to stand up. I want you to get in your body. I want you to step into a different perspective. Sort of look at a few different perspectives. Maybe make notes about what each perspective feels like, looks like, name it, okay? And then choose one. And just play with it for the next week or so until I see you back here next week. And I'd love to hear how this goes for you, because I know it's going to open up new and powerful ways of being in the world and connect you to your 5-dimensional reality. Thank you so much for joining today. I am really looking forward to hearing how this goes and what perspectives that you're choosing and how that's shifting things in your life. Have an amazing week. And be sure to subscribe below. Bye-bye.